Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a seriously chilling narrative. We're looking at what happens when societal systems fail so spectacularly that the resulting trauma just refuses to stay buried. It's a story that takes a super grounded everyday theme like nepotism and corruption and basically weaponizes it into an absolutely terrifying ghost story. So grab a seat and prepare yourselves, because we're about to drag the dark secrets of Ramganj station right into the light. Okay, let's just dive right into this. The story we're deconstructing today? It is definitely not your standard run-of-the-mill campfire ghost tale. It's set at this completely isolated railway station, but the true horror isn't just the phantom lurking in the dark. It's actually the societal failures that the narrative suggests created her in the first place. Right off the bat, the story introduces us to Ashika. She's a young woman who snags a highly coveted railway job, but not through merit. Nope. She gets it entirely because of her father's influence. I mean, she literally strolls into her interview late at like 4:36 p.m., bypasses all the other deserving candidates, and boom, gets an immediate posting. She's told to head to her new post early. But as you'll see, when a system is completely rigged, the consequences in this narrative can be downright deadly. And man, the atmospheric dread is built right from the jump. Ashika's arrival at Ramganj station is incredibly eerie. Imagine this. She steps off the train in the dead of night onto a completely deserted platform. She's exhausted, right? So she sits down on a bench and immediately slips into this terrifying nightmare where a ghostly woman, long hair covering her face, classic horror stuff, just stares her down, warning her to leave. But the terror doesn't just stop when she opens her eyes. She wakes up to find this super creepy weathered watchman just looming in the dark. He finally unlocks her new office, and the inside is, well, it's unsettling. It's been sealed shut, and it's absolutely filthy. We're talking a broken TV, old cigarette butts scattered around, rotting food left behind, literally the definition of a hostile work environment. It's the perfect claustrophobic setting for everything that comes next. So naturally, the watchman attempts to explain away all this intense, creeping dread. When Ashika demands to know why the station is totally abandoned and the office is so grossed, he casually drops a massive bombshell. Apparently, the previous officer died a horrific, painful death right under a train on those exact tracks. And because the station is so isolated, it's like a full 10 kilometers away from the nearest village, the locals have basically branded the whole place haunted. But when Ashika presses him about the ghost, he totally brushes it off. He just attributes it to a crazy woman who went out, laid down on the tracks, and took her own life. After saying that, he refuses to stay a single moment longer and just leaves Ashika all alone in the dark. Then the story drops a massive, horrifying plot twist. So the watchman is leaving the office, right? He's super eager to just get away from there. Suddenly, his phone rings. The voice on the other end is a young woman, and she says, "Hello, my plan for today was canceled, so I will arrive tomorrow morning by 12 p.m. Please open the office then." And then the caller identifies herself as Ashika. The watchman completely freezes. Think about it. If the real Ashika is calling to say she won't arrive until tomorrow, then who on earth is the woman sitting inside the office right now? Pure, sheer panic sets in as it hits him. The entity he just casually let into the station isn't human at all. Part 2. Now, to really understand the entity that's currently trapping the watchman, the narrative pivots. We actually flash back exactly 2 months to uncover the tragic, heavily grounded lore behind this whole haunting. And this timeline of events is just heartbreaking. Okay, so 8 weeks ago, a man named Ramesh passed the rigorous wheelway exams with absolute top marks. He was thrilled. He actually told his wife, Geeta, that they could finally afford to send their little girl, Mooni, to a good school. But then, just 1 week later, that entire dream was shattered. He went in for his interview only to discover his rightful job had been given away to someone with way lower marks. That person, Ashika. All because of nepotism. Completely broken by this massive injustice, Ramesh tragically took his own life. Shortly after that, his grieving widow, Geeta, went down to the station to demand answers and justice. But instead of being heard, she was violently shoved away by, you guessed it, the watchman. Consumed by grief and despair, Geeta threw herself under a train, completing the absolute destruction of an innocent family. Before he died, Ramesh left behind this really devastating suicide note. And honestly, this quote right here is exactly what grounds this horror story in a very real, relatable fear. He wrote, "This world is very bad. Here only the one who has reached to the top moves forward." He apologized to his wife for failing to give her a good life and begged her to take care of their daughter. This isn't just a monster hiding under your bed, The narrative is exploring the genuine horror of systemic inequality. It's the terror of doing everything right, working your tail off, and still having your entire livelihood stolen by someone who just happens to have better connections. So, the really crucial takeaway here is how this haunting operates. It's not just random violence, it's strict poetic justice. The narrative perfectly maps the real-world injustices to their supernatural consequences. Think about it. Nepotism stole Ramesh's job to give it to Ashika. In return, Geeta's ghost haunts the station specifically to intercept this new unearned hire. And remember how the watchman dismissed Geeta as a crazy woman and violently pushed her away when she was begging for justice? Well, back in the present timeline, as he realizes exactly who he left in the office, Geeta's vengeful spirit corners him. She brutally strangles him, telling him he is finally being punished for his mistakes, right before the blaring horn of an oncoming train completely seals his fate. From there, the story just builds this intense, suffocating suspense as the long night finally comes to an end. The sun rises on Ramganj station, a train pulls in, and the real Ashika finally steps off onto the deserted platform. She's got her bags, her unearned appointment letter, and she has absolutely no idea about the bloodshed that occurred just a few hours prior. She's just looking around this empty station, completely oblivious to the fact that she has just walked straight into the epicenter of a supernatural vendetta. Which brings us to a masterfully chilling cliffhanger. As Ashika is standing there on the empty platform, a woman approaches her, smiles warmly, and says, "You are Ashika, right? I am the new station master here. Come, let me open the office for you." It's Geeta. The ghost is now straight up masquerading as the station staff, calmly and quietly luring the very woman whose nepotism destroyed her family right into a trap. And Ashika just follows her toward the office, completely blind to the fact that the person holding the keys is a vengeful spirit. And that leaves us with this final, lingering question. Will Ashika survive her first day? This story does such an incredible job of intertwining the very real horrors of systemic corruption with supernatural retribution. It really leaves us wondering if a cycle of vengeance like that can ever truly be broken. It's a pretty chilling reminder that sometimes the ghosts that haunt us are born directly from the injustices we tolerate in the daylight. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I'll let you ponder just exactly what awaits Ashika behind that office door.